this is probably one of the only countries which is on a climate frontline hunger crisis. These are people who have contributed nothing to climate change. They don't burn fossil fuels, they don't drive cars, they don't take planes, and yet they are at the heart, at the epicenter of what is a climate catastrophe driving food insecurity. 1.14 million people living in crisis, in food insecure.
Welcome to the SCG Media Zone at the UN High Level Political Forum. My name is Teresa Welsh, and I am a senior reporter with DEVEX. And I am joined today by Shelley Thakral, who is the WFP Senior Regional Communications Officer in Southern Africa, and she is joining us today from Madagascar. Welcome, Shelley.
Thank you so much.
It's such a pleasure to be chatting with you today, and we are going to be talking a little bit about the situation in Madagascar. And I'd love if we could start out with you telling us a little bit of the overview and what's happening with the hunger crisis in Madagascar at the moment.
Yeah, so from the World Food Programme's point of view, we have been on the ground in Madagascar for a long time. The Deep South, as we call it, it's the Deep South, the Grand Sud. And if you look at the island of Madagascar, it's sort of a tropical rainforest in the north and desert in the south. And what we're witnessing, which is rather alarming for WFP, is that there has been very severe drought for the last 4 years, and no rain has been good rain. So the little that they have is just not enough. From the air, you can just see how the land, how the topography goes from sort of hills to very flat, very sand-like, kind of that orange sand color. Now, what has been happening is the way Madagascar is that the sand on the coastal sides of the island, because of the exposure of the island, because of the dryness, the semi-aridness, the climate, the exposure, the sand has been blowing over what normally would have been agricultural land for food production. And this has been covering land. When you have nothing, you have to forage, you have to look for whatever food you can find. And that's people who are going into the fields and just plucking it's like a red piece of almost like a flower type which sits on the top of a cactus, and if you open it, it is a piece of fruit, but you can't survive on that. Too much of that is not good. It's not nutritious food. And you're seeing children who are skin and bones, wasted. The stunting there it's heartbreaking. I went to one health centre and met children who are being treated for severe acute malnutrition. Obviously, very, very critical and very concerning. UNICEF and WFP are working very closely on prevention and on treatment. But these are children who probably look, they look very tiny. They're probably 7 or 8 years old, but because of wasting, because of being underweight, because of no access to anything nutritious, they look, much younger. They look like they're sort of 3 or 4 years old.
That's quite the stark picture of the situation there. And, I also must say, even being a reporter, I haven't heard a lot about this, right? It's, this is a really dire situation, and it's not something people are talking about. So tell us a little bit more about what WFP is doing, looking into September, looking into planting season, to attempt to build resilience in communities to try to avoid these terrible impacts, as well as, responding to what's already going on. Catastrophe levels, obviously quite concerning. How are you working to get people food that they might need right now?
we need to be able to give people 100% rations, and we need $78.6 million just for the emergency alone. And that's just to be able to put, to be able to give food to families, to children. In one village, I met a mother of 7, and in front of them was this plate of cactus seeds that I spoke about earlier. And the children were just, just slowly, picking at this food. We work closely with the government, but the lady Tamara, she said to me, I can't. What is there for me to do in the day? I go and look for these cactus fruit, whatever plants we can eat. They've had to sell utensils, pots, pans. She had nothing in her house. She had a 4x4 4-foot by 4-foot wooden hut with sort of like a plastic tarpaulin on the floor. They had to sell everything because they don't, that just by means to even buy, just to be able to source any bits of food. She said even to cook that, I have to kind of ask my neighbour or walk somewhere because I don't have the utensils. I don't have money for firewood. So these are people that literally have nothing. And her two of the children had gone to the field to find some of these plants and cactus fruit to eat, as well as to carry water. Even to get water, it's a 4-kilometre walk, which could be almost 2-3 hours every day. So from a social protection issue, that's also very worrying. So what the World Food Programme is very is really heavily involved with is working with the government of Malagasy to make sure that we can put in and help with, help them with the infrastructure, with water, with better access, and that's WFP plus all other UN agencies and partners as well. We also run a school feeding program in the south. It's incredible, really. There's something quite amazing about when you are able to give a hot meal to children, especially who probably woke up in the morning very early, had to do chores before they came to school, maybe collecting water or firewood. But that one meal a day for children means that they have something in their stomach. They have energy, they're motivated, they need your support. And I think that, again, is an important reminder of why the World Food Programme is on the ground, is trying to scale up with school feeding, is looking at resources where we can to build that capacity. In terms of resilience, in terms of the other social protection programs, there are projects as well with communities where we help them with land. And there was one community I met who were growing coconut trees. So basically that they have that sort of ownership, that empowerment within the community themselves.
Well, Shelley, thank you so much for joining us today and, telling us about what's happening in Madagascar, considering all of the reasons you just laid out as to why a lot of people are not talking about this.
Thank you so much.